All of us political junkies every day wake up and go, oh, I miss the Rocky Mountain News. I miss 2 newspapers in this town. Now we only have, well, 1 newsletter, the Denver Post, but it's all we have from formerly the Rocky Mountain News and the Denver Post. I'm glad to see you again, Mike Littwin with the Colorado Independent.
Great to be here as always.
And one of the greatest columnists from the Rocky Mountain News, now with Complete Colorado, Pete Blake.
Hello, John.
All right, so I wake up one morning, and I see that.
You're always happy.
When that's always
a great start.
Yeah, that was like better than yesterday. And I see that the Rocky Mountain News might have a rebirth. First of all, let's go through the story. When did the Rocky close? I'm trying to remember.
February 2009.
It was a sad day for Colorado.
A few days short of its 150th birthday.
Yeah, because Scripps Howard couldn't last the extra month.
That's right, to celebrate the anniversary. No.
Right. And so ended the great newspaper war. And then you got gobbled up by the Post before you got fired by the Post, because that's pretty much the MO.
What happens to me, yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good thing. So who owns the Rocky Mountain News, the name Rocky Mountain News?
Well, shockingly to me, we found out that very day that you were able to wake up, already a banner day, that Phil Anschutz, or as I like to call him now, Uncle Phil, he owns the RockyMountainNews.com. He owns the URL, and of course he also owns about how many $1 billion worth of other stuff. But we wake up to find that he's talking about creating a new Rocky Mountain News.
This rocks. This is great. I mean, I remember as a kid, watching Star Trek, and then one day somebody says, you know what? We're going to make another Star Trek in the next generation. I'm thinking, this is going to be great. It was okay, but that's the same feeling I had. Give me the odds on this. Why is there a possible Rocky Mountain News? What do you know?
Well, I am unburdened by any inside information. So all I know is what I've read, and Neil Westergaard and others, some fellow from the West Coast, has opined that this is just a tactic to lower the price, and so the Post, he really wants the Post, and he wants to get it at a lower price. So if he threatens to bring on another paper, the Post will capitulate and sell at a lower price.
Now, Phil Anschutz owns a few publications, including the Washington Examiner. He owns the Gazette down in Colorado Springs, and you got to admit,
Daily Oklahoman, yeah.
Daily Oklahoman.
And the Gazette has, I mean, it's really been a great paper and keeps continuing. They just won a Pulitzer for something. I'm trying to remember what that was. They've got a new signature building downtown. I mean, so when he invested in the Gazette, it didn't seem like he was squeezing out every little penny and trying to put it up for sale. Let's go over here. Why does Phil Anschutz want to restart the Rocky?
Well, I don't know if he does. I mean, who knows what he's doing? But the thing that struck me most was that he is Phil Anschutz, so he can do whatever he wants to.
Well, so can I.
Yeah, except you can't afford.
I just can't afford the lawyers afterwards.
You can't afford to start a Rocky Mountain News. I can't afford. The 3 of us together can barely afford to buy a copy. So, this is a different. He can do whatever he wants to. If he wants to go in and lose money and spend all the cost to start a newspaper in Denver, I mean, he's one of the only people in the country who could.
And the Denver Post is on the chopping block. What is it? Digital First. I'm trying to remember who owns the Post now. It's up for sale. So if you got,
it's owned by some other
who owns
investment group.
Yeah, exactly. A hedge fund owns Digital First. The Denver Post part of Digital First is owned by the banks, and so the deal that would be made to sell the Denver Post, I'm not sure how it would work, but here's the one of the big sticking points. The big problem that the Post has, from what I'm told from
sources,
insiders,
insiders,
not just sources.
Inside.
I don't stop with sources. I go to the insiders. Yeah. What insiders say is, when the Post, they went to this managed bankruptcy. They owed something like, I think it was $900 million. and they got it down to like 180 million. But for the cost was that Dean Singleton, everybody got kicked out, and the banks are people on the board, and they basically run the newspaper through digital first.
So basically, the Denver Post is no longer owned by people who care and love about newspapers. They're in receivership.
By other people.
They're
yes.
owned by banks, and the banks would like to get rid of it. Is that?
Yeah. So, but the problem the Post has is, what I'm told is that they once owed 900 million, then they owed 180 million. That would seem like less, but the thing is, they weren't actually paying off the 900 million. The deal was they had to actually pay off the 180 million, so that they're making a little bit of money. Newspapers who have a monopoly in cities, even in these bad times for newspapers, having cut their staffs and everything else, they make a little bit of money. But when you have to pay a debt on top, with that little bit of money that you're making, you're not making any money. And I think that's the situation they find themselves in. But for a buyer, what do you assume when you buy? What Dean Singleton did what made him rich, what made him famous, was he would get these papers for nothing, right? I mean, that's where he got papers.
A lot of local papers, a lot of once a week small town papers.
Got them
right.
for zip. And you know, his deal when he bought the Denver Post, he got it for this tremendous bargain from Times Mirror, and then Times Mirror, which no longer exists, of course. And so, is somebody going to get a Dean Singleton-like deal to buy the Denver Post? And that's what we'd assume that Anschutz is looking for.
Over here, does the Rocky Mountain News rumor of a rebirth of Rocky Mountain News, is that take your best guess, is that a negotiating point, or is it
pretty far down, I would think, Anschutz's priority list? I mean, he's more likely to want to bring the Raiders back to L.A. for a second time and things like that. I mean, he has a big presence in L.A. But
he's got a big presence here. I mean,
well, he does.
He lives here. His offices are here.
He ran a whole initiative years ago to shut down a pig farm in the north because the odors were offending his sensibilities. He was downwind, and they ran a ballot issue and they won. Yeah, and they closed the pig farm down. So he might want.
If there's a guy who, if he wanted to bring back a newspaper or start one up, Phil could do this.
He could. And if he doesn't probably want to make a lot of money, maybe he just does it for love. In fact, the future of newspapers is they're going to have to be run for love because, as Mike's pointed out, they don't make a lot of money anymore. So if you want to run it for love, a family operation usually, until the family splits apart like the Freedom newspapers and they all went away because the family couldn't agree.
Because the next generation doesn't get along.
There you go.
All right, if you wanted a newspaper in Colorado, is it cheaper to start from scratch?
No.
Or to buy the behemoth of the Denver Post? Why not start from scratch? You've got the name. If he owns the name, it's. Here
are the things that you have to do if you're going to start a newspaper, a news newspaper. A paper newspaper. That's the kind of thing that you.
That's
you
yesterday.
have to print.
Right.
So you have to have printing presses. You have to have a distribution. You got to have trucks that take your newspaper and deliver them. Plus, you've got to have subscribers. Now, the Denver Post. The Denver Post has, I don't know how many they have now. They probably have something like 150 to 200, somewhere in there. Maybe
not 200,000, just 200.
Just 200, yeah. So I mean, it's when people get the newspaper, they keep saying, "Well, I don't know. Do I really want the newspaper?" But it's hard to cancel. You got to actually.
It's like a gym membership. I don't know how to get out of this.
Yeah, so you pay off that gym membership for years and never go there, right? But to actually get people to start to buy one, that's a whole different deal. Tremendously expensive.
But the news has a built-in name recognition. It already has a vibe. I mean, the Cleveland Browns split town and became, I forget what they became. Were they the Ravens?
The Ravens.
Ravens.
Yeah.
So they brought back and started a new Cleveland Browns, same uniform, and it worked. Why wouldn't it work with
Not very well.
Why not for the Rocky Mountain News? And maybe it's an all online. I mean, we're getting to the point now that newspaper delivery, that's for you old guys.
they'd have to do the delivery like they did under the joint operating agreement, have the same carriers deliver both papers. That was part of the deal because it's expensive to deliver papers. Finding somebody who wants to get up early.
Well, printing the papers, I think, is even
I don't even
bigger.
know if where the Rockies presses are. They've long been sold to somebody.
Well, yeah, they're gone, but I can't remember. Does the Gazette print its own paper still? Because the Denver Post prints most of the papers on the Front Range. And but I think the Gazette may still have its own presses.
And also,
so you could,
the same company that owns the Post owns the Boulder Daily Camera,
yes,
and I believe the Longmont paper, yes, and a couple others.
A couple of other papers.
So that's a big network.
That's one reason I would see, okay, you know, an appeal for Anschutz if he's gonna get into the newspaper business in Colorado in a big way. This is the way to do it. Get the Post as a bargain. Get it for nothing. It's got debt. Just take it over for virtually nothing, which I think is what he's probably trying to do. And you get Boulder, and you get Loveland, and you get a few other papers, and you've got the Gazette. You know, now all of a sudden you've got the little Rocky Mountain Empire that we're always talking about, right? So here's the Rocky Mountain Empire that belongs to Anschutz, in which, you know, as someone who is as political minded as he is, and we give you an opportunity to run an editorial page that's very similar throughout all those papers, would be a very important thing.
I've talked to some inside sources myself, and particularly at the Denver Post, they want anybody to buy this paper. I mean, being a reporter is, I mean, you guys had some good years as reporters. What a tough job it is now. I mean, they're moving so fast. They got to get online content. They got to do this. There's no more investigative reporting, the kind of in-depth columns that you guys would do. They're really hard to find anymore. Having somebody who would pay for this, you know, newspapers are now becoming a bit more like football teams. You've got Jeff Bezos who bought, the Washington Post. You got another guy who bought this. And so it becomes more of a hobby than a business interest.
Yes, and that's, well, that may be the way it's going to survive. Somebody loves it, wants to see news, maybe even printed news.
Nobody wants to see printed.
Well,
All right.
Isn't that more? You pay for this paper. You pay for a paper that's delivered, and then you read to the bottom of the column. This is an abbreviated version. For the full column, go on the web for free. You know.
All right. So half a minute. So the Rocky Mountain News gets up and running. You're going to apply for a job there?
I'm sitting by my phone, but I haven't got the call.
I haven't got the call there. Yeah.
Uncle Phil, my email, it's militwin@gmail.com.
Just
If you really want a ridiculously overpaid left-wing columnist,
we got
this is the guy.
Just give me the paper. Just buy the Post or start something. Please help us all out. We need help. Thank you, Pete. Might go away. We'll talk to you next week.